6 of the Salem School Committee. Moving on, always with the pledge of allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. As a reminder, this meeting is being recorded and streamed live at www.salem.tv.org. Never said it before. And Sandwich Community Television Education Channel 8, and also the Sandwich Enterprise is doing an audio recording. We will begin first public forum of the evening. Anybody like to come forward for the public forum? Seeing none. Next up is the student representative. Oh, if you could just please sign in, I just ask you to sign in with your name and address with the secretary. And just a reminder, public forum, we do it twice a meeting. It's not a discussion, debate, or dialogue between individuals and school committee. You can sit right there at that seat. It's an individual opportunity to express opinion on issues within the school committee's authority. And anyone coming forward will have 5 minutes to speak. So, I'll just ask you to name it street facts.
My name is Anthony Collins. So I'm here with my husband, Chris Collins, and we live on Spring.
Is the tree light on?
It is.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry. My not to come here. I'm here tonight because of an incident that has occurred with my son, Sean Collins, who's the senior this year at Sandwich, and for the lack of resolution that has occurred thus far. He has been for the last 4 years on the Sandwich varsity hockey team, and is a goalie, and has done nothing but everything that he was appropriately supposed to be doing along the whole time. Has been loyal, has stayed here, has wanted to be a part of this community, has wanted to play with these kids that he knows since he was young. We all know each other in some capacity since we were all little. He's been a goalie since he was 5 years old. This is his world. And this year, a student and has continued the behavior that was already happening, the toxic behavior that was already happening in that locker room from previous bullies and other people in that locker room as well. But he has persisted, but it became elevated this year. After the start of the season, speaks in a manner that is extremely disrespectful to my son. In the locker room, on and off the ice, on and off school property, social media, what have you. And it has become very, increasingly toxic. And so it became to the point where on the 22nd, Monday night, the 22nd, so we had just come back from a family wedding that my son chose not to go to because he was being loyal to the team and wanted to stay there for the team because there was a game on the day of the wedding. We were in Virginia, but he stayed. And we came back and then the end of the practice itself on the ice and everything was very uncomfortable, very difficult. In the locker room, became increasingly so. He was one of the first few in the shower, and this and other people are speaking to him in increasingly raised voices. He said, yelling at him to get out of the shower, hurry up. Started to say things about him and his girlfriend in the locker room, in the shower at him, other people chiming in. And Sean gets out of the shower and finds at some point his clothing, his underwear, his socks have been taken and thrown into the shower and urinated upon. I don't care after the fact who may have said anything to my son, may have asked him if he was okay, or anything after the fact. But in that locker room at that time, not one person in that team stood up for him. there is no support, there hasn't been any in a long time, he has still continued to be present with this team and still wants to be, but actually
They're
not
currently in marketing right now.
playing. He's broken. He doesn't want to. He doesn't want to be there. But yet he had, our kids are raised, they made a commitment. You see that through. You finish what you start. That's how our kids are raised.
He doesn't want to bully me. He wants actually something he loves and since he's 5 years old not to stop. He doesn't want somebody who's tired of him, and he wants to be prized above it, be able to stand there and actually look him in the face every single day to see who he is and what type of person he is. We know this individual, we know what type of individual that person is, we knew beforehand, and we knew when he came back to the school what was going to happen, or what could possibly happen if they came into proximity with each other. My son, you can talk to any teacher, anybody that knows him, anybody at all, just pick one random person at Sandwich High School or Oak Ridge or wherever you'd like to go, and they can give you a report about what fantastic character he is, you know, whether it be lifeguarding or opera safe or whatever it may be. You'll see what type of person that he is. And you can ask about the other individual too, whether it be in Nashville or here, figure out what type of person that person is.
And the apple does not fall far from the tree. And we just do that.
But be that as it may, we went through the proper steps. We weren't going to sit here and, you know, just sit on our hands, but we're going to actually go through the proper steps and bring this to the attention of the school immediately. So we did do that.
The night that it happened, Sean came out of the locker room holding items that were dripping. The coach knew something was awry and was able to pull out Sean. Something was wrong, what was wrong, told him, this is not okay, even though Sean's like, it's not a big deal, I don't want to make a big deal. But it is a big deal, coach said, appropriately so, and he did appropriately contact Sean Donovan that night.
This is what he said. So this is, I mean, this is obviously hearsay. He'll actually, you know, probably talk to you too. He followed, according to the coach, he said he followed the protocol. You know, when he found out that Sean came out of the locker room and he had his red items, and Sean said basically, I don't want to, it's not a big deal, you know, so we can. And the coach said, no, it is actually a big deal. What's going on? What's the deal? You know, this freezing cold, lovely weather that we have now. Hopefully it's aberration, but the day that it happened was freezing cold. And to be without your underwear, to be without your socks, and to go out and go about your day, it's not thing to do. But the coach asked him, okay, so what happened? He said, I don't know. All I know is that somebody took my stuff, threw it in the shower. And then one of his teammates said to him, yes, and also someone urinated on while they're in the shower. Okay? So the coach immediately said, okay, I understand this is actually a serious situation. This is not something that you can just blow over. This is not a big, not a big deal. I have to address this. I have to, handle this. So Sean said, okay, fine, that's okay. The coach called in the captains and tried to talk to them. Everybody was leaving. He's a goalie, so he was towards the end of the line and stuff like that, getting out of the shower. And we now, even though he was in the first into the shower, get kind of always putting a hurry with that. Sort of way to do it. But the coach immediately contacted the AD, told him exactly what happened from there, and the coach said, I'm not going to do a half-assed investigation. I'm going to leave that up to the AD or for the AD to figure out what exactly happened. Because I don't have the facts, so I don't know what's going on.
Right. No, the next day I did speak to Sean Donovan, and but I spoke to David Cott first, who said that he had spoken with some students, and then had heard that he had apologized to Sean. When he had said that, that made me think he was something of this, and I said, so I apologized to my son, and he said, that is my understanding. That apology actually did really happen for my son. However, there is a text that there's a screenshot of some sort of message from, I don't know, Snapchat or what it is, but my son took screenshots of the different messages, but this one thing were from this kid, and roundabout kind of apologizes for something he thinks he
May.
may,
It
but
looks like
doesn't
he
think
was
he
obviously
did.
close off, he did Snapchats because he automatically vanishes. So that's why it was a good idea to take a snapshot of who he actually
With
is.
my phone of his, because they get notified if you take screenshots.
So we actually
or
have
something.
proof that.
But yes, but David Koch did not contest that. Then he said that I needed to talk further with Sean Donovan, Jeannie Nelson wasn't available, I don't know, I don't think anybody else.
This is right.
This is the day after the incident, right before Christmas. There was a game that day, and the last conversation I had with Sean Donovan basically said, you know, I've talked to Dave Acock, I've talked to, you know, there's been discussions, I feel really good about being able to tell you that, you know, there's a decision was made basically for neither of them to play because the state of their mind might not be the right frame of mind or what have you to play this afternoon or whatever. So, because slated, I guess, to be in that day.
Mr. and Mrs. Collins,
Yes.
I respectfully request, please do not use, you're bringing to public forum
Yes.
a student disciplinary issue. Please do not, and bring up other students' names other than your own child's. I respectfully request.
Okay. Okay. All right. So it's junior goalie.
So this junior goalie was basically slated to play in the game. The quote unquote punishment or something was to say, okay,
He's not.
he's not going to be playing today. But he can come to the game, he can go there and be with the team.
And we
everything
were
like that.
asked at that point when I said, okay, is this it, or what else is there left to do at this point? And he said because it was the holidays and this, you know, people had plans and things and all that, you know, maybe we could meet up after the school year starts back up. And then, like, that's kind of ridiculous. And when it's regarding the people that are involved in this situation, they're gonna be around because there's games and practices, so these kids are around. We asked repeatedly to have a meeting for some sort of resolution to talk to the parents and the child involved and player, student, whatever we're calling this kid. And they refused. They refused to talk. We got that phone call from Sean Donovan last Wednesday. That in itself speaks volumes. They, as well as many other people, are treating us differently, looking at us differently, looking at my kids differently, both of my kids.
There was also a meeting with parents on. So there was a meeting that they scheduled because they didn't want to schedule anything during the holidays and people were away.
We had to wait till
So
after
January
Christmas.
5th was the next meeting.
No, the 31st. It was the 31st. It was the 31st. We sat down with Jeannie Nelson, Coach Moore, and Jordan Moore, and Sheila. And we had specified that in during that meeting is about, again, we should sit down and talk to the family of the student and, you know, what else can be done about this. And Coach Moore supposedly talked to the team the next day that after the incident happened. And
The AD said basically leave it in generalities, do not get into specifics, but this is the parameters of what should be allowed and what should not be allowed, and just
Can't agree with there, so have to talk about that, but I would think that if taking some of the stuff and this run, we would not allow on Sunday.
so after that meeting, held later, got the meeting email from Jeannie Nelson, and she said basically we have to wait till the school year started back up again, which was the 5th, before anything could be done, because that was the following road ahead. So January 5th comes up, I didn't hear anything back immediately, so I had sent an email, lug out there, like, we're still here, everybody had a great holiday and everything, but we had this on our plates, and what are we doing? And then I got a phone call, I met Eric from Dave Acock, and he had, you know, speakerphone with Sean Donovan and Jeannie Nelson, and explained to me how they felt really good about the discussions that they had and the different students and their parents that they had talked to, and came to the resolution. They felt really good. They wanted to let me know that and ask if I had any questions. And none of that meant anything to me because I don't know what I was supposed to take from that. That doesn't tell me anything. And I said, well, that I'm not okay about this. My son's not okay about this. My son has to go to school and is listening to people all around him.
he's there,
Talk about
practice every single day, that games every single day. This-
The other seniors had a few games. My son's had a game and a half. He got to play half his senior night.
So we keep on hearing that, oh, this is about playing time, and we're saying, no. We already know this isn't about playing time, this is about the incident that happened. You can try to deflect it or say whatever you want about what's going on. We're just telling you the facts of what's happened.
I guess I need to
He's
understand.
not there, he's not, you know, he was there the day after the incident at that game. But the junior day was there, and you could stay on the bench, you could be dressed for the game, and you do that.
He wasn't there because he talked to the coach And the coach understood why Sean wasn't going to be present. Sean was not okay to be present that afternoon. The next day after that happened.
But we don't see, all we said in our meeting is too, there should be some kind of repercussions for the actions. These actions never should have happened whatsoever. We have proof that he may have done these, but basically it's kind of admission that he did do these things, if he did do them, or he's terribly sorry, didn't mean to type things. So we have that. And there's been nothing. Nothing.
After Sean
There's been
called
nothing,
us
done
last
for
Wednesday,
him.
there's been crickets.
Yeah.
The people that are contacting me are people from the newspapers. That's who's contacting me.
What's the consequences for these actions?
Nothing.
No consequences? Or did you go to bed, deserved? Is that what's going on? I mean, it just seems like we're getting where people will say, well, there's things going on and there's things that are happening and we're having fantastic meetings and we're talking about these things. But
None of that means anything.
what exactly is happening?
We're the ones that are affected. Our family is turned upside down. And continue to live whole lives. And there doesn't feel like there's ever a solution. I cannot possibly understand why this student is allowed to continue to keep doing what he wants to do.
We, as the superintendent alluded to, we cannot discuss debate and disciplinary issues here. It's not appropriate for us.
Well, I haven't gotten anywhere in any other way.
No,
And I've tried to reach out in different avenues and I'm not getting anywhere. So
I appreciate
I'm
you.
not sure where else to go.
Let me clarify that.
Where else have you reached out?
You've been on every email I've sent. You've never responded.
You requested a specific meeting.
Yes, I've asked you to be at meetings. I've
Every
asked
single
all the
meeting,
people that
every
I've had in my
single meeting
emails
since this began.
to come, and you've never been present and you've never acknowledged
To
it.
meet with both of you to discuss this topic in great depth.
That'd be great.
That'd be fantastic, but the problem is we're gonna get the same exact thing,
Maybe
probably,
even
which is, it's a great
before they
discussion,
consider
and Larry
that.
talked about it, and we can't discuss what the consequences of the actions are, but we see that nothing has happened at school, nothing has happened.
You never said anything years ago either when my son was told to kill himself by multiple students, one of whom was on Sean's team. Does that ring a bell?
Honestly, it does not.
I'm thankful to hear that.
Okay, if I may, and I was just trying to clarify. Thank you for coming. Don't misread me when I'm saying this. But we cannot, as a body, we cannot engage on any topic, whether it's this or anything else, public comment. That's just open media law. It doesn't mean we don't care or not concerned. Please just understand constraints. And normally it's 5 minutes. It's been about 15. I think it's
Sorry
something-
for the time.
No, I didn't stop you, out of respect. I think we could have a follow meeting here, but just realize us not engaging with you again is your department's law. It's not indication of a lack of concern or interest.
So Kristen, I'm just doing whatever I can. I don't care what anybody thinks. I don't care what anybody has to say to me about their opinions or anything. I'm here for my kids. Quite honestly, my daughter still is in the system, but I really don't know that it's going to continue. If things are going to continue the way they are, there's a long history in Sandwich of bullying, racism, long history. Many people I know who don't want their kids here, who have not moved to this town, but who have left the town or removed their kids into a school choice elsewhere for issues that have happened. Thanks. I wish, hindsight's 2020. Wish my kids weren't in the system. My son does not deserve the way that he has been treated by many kids in this school system. And now some beyond.
Okay.
I don't know what happens after this, but I need to have something before I walk out of this room to know what's the next step.
Well, I think the superintendent said, I'm sure he will reach out to you this at the meeting. Again, the school committee does not get directly on specifics student disciplinary issues because it's minors involved, but that's not our purview. But I'm sure we follow up on that. I'm sure you, for my position as chair, I will ensure that there's involved.
Thank you.
Anybody else like to speak public forum? Seeing none. Next up is the student representative.
Hi everyone. I'm the student representative report for the new year. I hope that this new year has been going good. It's January. Hope everyone's working on the resolutions. If you guys made any. First with Forestdale, we are celebrating our students. There's the REACH Award Assembly that's going to happen on January 28th. REACH is an acronym for respect, empathy, assertiveness, courage, and honesty. And this month's theme is courage, so it celebrates all the students who have been awarded with this. It's sponsored by the PTA, and very grateful and thankful for them for having these celebrations. So many celebrations, of course. So we also have a writing celebration, January 30th. It's in first grade classrooms, and while it seems like small accomplishments that they're celebrating, they're still impactful and meaningful to the students, because for them this is like a lot of like it's their first time like learning something, and even if right now like in big picture we might not see it, but the celebrations mean a lot to them. And just like the high school, they also had mid-year assessments. There's the U5 phonics, which is from January 20th to 26th, and it's for first and second graders, and it just assesses their testing on like language and stuff, which is kind of similar to how my EP literature exam is gonna go. So switching them luck as well. For Oak Ridge, a huge welcome to Mr. McLean. As he transitioned from the high school to Oak Ridge. I know we miss him a lot, especially everyone who took strength and conditioning, but I'm sure that he'll find moments to be back, because he'll be back. There's also been an upstander club that's been started at Oak Ridge, and it's to teach students to be upstanders rather than bystanders, and to stand up for what's right and against bullying. So I'm excited for that to see, and it's good that we're having these clubs in younger grades so that they grow and develop these skills as they go further. There's a winter concert on January 29th at 6:30 p.m. I remember being in this little winter concert and singing Ed Sheeran, and I also played Lost Boy. I was a terrible singer, and I'm very happy that I have not picked up a since then, but I'm so glad their students will definitely kind of pass you through this. Our notes were definitely off, but hearts were in the right place, so that's all that matters. That club has recently won first place in the state, because there's future Einsteins over there, so whether they're curing multiple diseases and just ruling the world, we'll all be able to reflect and say, those were our math club kids. And the computer science kids and the pathway from high school have recently collaborated with the 6th grade classrooms and the technology rooms to kind of teach them more about computer science and engage anyone who would be interested in that pathway. So if anyone does want a future career in that or wants to learn more about computer science, then they are exposed to it early on and can think about it as they transition to the high school. For the high school, we have our mid-year exams that are starting Monday, and I'm definitely terrified, but it's my last year exams for my high school years, but I will have some in college, but high school last ones. DECA has been really successful. There were 8 members recently who qualified for the State Career Development Conference, which is in March. One of our students even placed first, a couple of them placed like 5th and 4th, one of them even placed 3rd, so we're so happy for them. Our media pathway is also very successful. Our Intro to Business class recently built their own talk shows for everyone, partook in like different sections, different parts of what it would be like to participate in a successful talk show, and then kind of just to see what a team it takes to really have a show progress forward. 11 advanced party members and 2 band students were represented at Sandwich Mill High School at the Southeast Regional Music Festival this past weekend. I have a couple of friends who went, and I know they said they had so much fun, and it was so wonderful to have an opportunity like this. The biomedical pathway students in human body systems dissected sheep brains, so they basically picked apart and kind of identified what part goes with what, what part tests with what, which I know that some people really loved it and some people didn't so well, but it's okay. Our school has been highlighted for excellence by our students in their AP classes, as we've been named AP honor roll gold winners. And it's because we have such high percentages of students scoring above a 3, so they're passing their AP exams, which is great. Before break, we had gingerbread houses. You guys should have seen that, and it was sort of the Oz. We had the little, which is like, it was great. But everyone was so creative, just walking around. There was some hockey arenas, there was the whole village. It was so interesting to see how everyone thought did the Nouveau gingerbread houses. And NHS recently donated stockings to the unhoused in Hyannis, and we all played Christmas music, holiday music while we put together stockings for everyone, and it was lots of fun. Spending all the holiday cheer. So I have my words.
Thank you, Trey. Is there any questions for Trey? Seeing none. Good to see you. Oh, sorry.
I'm also terrified of the year exams, and I have no idea how to read that here.
No, the schedule is really like, when I read it the first time, I was like, I'm so confused. But it's like on Monday, our last block is our first exam, and then every day after that, no, not Monday, Tuesday. Every day after that, it's like 2 exams per day. But yeah. Well, thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Next up is review and act on the regular business meeting minutes dated January 7th, 2026.
Make a motion to review, approve the minutes from business meeting dated on 7/26.
Motion by Ms. Goodwin, second by Dr. Vino. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Any opposed? Any abstentions? Passes 5-0. Next up is correspondence and announcements. I have none. Is there any other? Seeing none. Next up is superintendent's reports.
All right, good evening, everybody. First, a couple issues. One is a little bit more involved than the second, but I put some extensive notes in the background memo regarding Verizon reaching out to the town and also to the school district over the issue of release for the cell antennas that are on roof in auditorium of the middle high school. So the town has had an agreement in place actually since 2007. And if you do frequent town meeting, you see this every single year. This is one of the articles that's voted upon. And the town basically gives us, through the agreement, the lease agreement money from Verizon with the express purpose of the maintenance and recruitment of the athletic facilities at San Luis High School. Okay, so people probably don't notice it, but as you are driving up the front, on the side of, where I've got the arrow, mounted on the side is where the Verizon antennas have been for almost 20 years. So we've been approached from Verizon because the lease is up this year to do one of two options. Okay, option one would be taking a lump sum payment of a little bit more than almost $505,000 from Verizon and to have 40-year easement. Okay, so that means that they have rights to that, to use that area for 40 years. Door number two, option two, is to continue the lease and to kind of do it in 5-year increments. I think I put a link in the background memo of what the payments have been. And they've been, I think just for FY26, it's $34,000. The bad news, and this is, I'm told that this is kind of a national trend because the technology is getting better and we need these sites less and less, it would be $2,300 a month. So that translates to, on an annual basis, $27,600. For the year, it would be 5-year increments for leases, and we would have the option to renew that 3 times for a total of 20 years. Okay. The Verizon rep has told us verbally, but also in writing, in all likelihood, they would need it for 10 years, but the way 5G technology is evolving, there's really no guarantee beyond 10 years. For each 5-year increment, the monthly payment would increase by 10%. So assuming that there would be years 6 through 10, that payment would go from $27,600 per year to $30,360. Okay, so if you were to crunch some quick numbers, in 10 years, it would yield, in theory, almost $290,000. Potentially another $167,000 in years 11 through 15, and so on. So you have these two options. They did share with us that for landlords like this, about 55% of them take the lump sum with 40-year easement versus continuing the lease over 5 years. So, this has been kind of in the discussion stage during the holidays. Myself, Michael Ryan, Heather Parker, and Chief Burke had the opportunity to discuss this with the town's legal counsel, Vicki Marsh. And, we've got to go with one of the two options. If we do go with the lump sum payment, easement would have to be approved at town meeting, at the annual town meeting in May. My inclination is to go with the lump sum payment because I think there is suppression beyond 10 years, and I also think about some of the pressing needs that we have, particularly with regards to the athletic facilities. We're kind of on borrowed time with regard to returfing Conto Stadium. That's going to be a big item. I also think about putting in an additional portion should we get final approval for the reconstruction of the tennis courts project. We probably would be on the hook for a small portion of that, and so on. So we've got right now, we're anticipating within the next week or two, we're hearing from Attorney Marsh, who's going to look through the easement agreement and kind of the fine print. But I share this news with you for your consideration because it's something that, in relatively short order, we're going to have to make a decision on, for the simple reason that Verizon wants to then the direction in which we're going to go. So more than happy to take questions.
I just want to, I agree that the option 1 seems to be like the most obvious choice, but I'm curious, when you said that they would have the rights to use the facility,
for the purposes of having some type of antenna or.
oh, so they would take those down and add.
Yeah, so say at some point in 2030 it becomes 6G or 7G, and there's some other type of technology. I'm sure by the terms of easement they would have those rights.
Okay.
Could be for some completely different purpose.
But so is it just to boost the signal?
To have coverage and
have coverage in the
accuracy.
area. Okay.
Yeah.
I just wanted clarification.
Yeah.
Who else?
Yeah, we talked briefly on this offline. My question is exactly what is easement? You gotta do real property and that gets real technical real fast. I'll be on that for so.
Yeah, I'm not exactly an easement expert, as a matter of fact. When we had a Zoom with Attorney Marshall, okay, I didn't really know much. Talk to me a little bit about lease versus easement. And she was great. And I think what we could plan on doing is 2 weeks from tonight, for our next meeting, willing that we get through everything budget-wise, when we meet on the 28th, we can kind of do a deeper dive into defining what the easement is.
Yeah, because 40 years from now, high school is 50 years old. I don't think it's in the same building when it's 90 years old. That's just me. So, okay, appreciate the visibility on it. Any other questions?
Okay, and the second thing, a lot easier to understand. I put a link in the notes to the spreadsheet. We're really excited for the PD offerings that we're having on the in-service day this Friday. All of you are more than welcome to attend any or all. I know Dr. Miller, I think you're going to come to one of the AI sessions, I believe. But I just want to recognize Dave Quinn and Jen Kirk for their hard work on this, putting this together. I don't know, Dave, if you just want to touch upon some of the highlights.
Thank you, Dr. Michelle. Very excited. We've got over 70 sessions that will be offered for teachers, ranging in topics as mentioned, from AI to executive functioning to the youth, several sessions on youth flyer, literacy, discourse, thinking deeply about topics through thinking protocols. So we've got a wide range. The vast majority of the sessions are offered for colleagues, by colleagues. So a lot of this is driven by feedback that we collected for teachers based on their needs. We also reviewed the strategic plan in terms of our overall action plans and goals. So we're just really excited for today. We come up at 8. We'll do this like a small conference breakfast. So we just so you can join us and look forward to an exciting day.
Any questions?
Thoughts introducers you summarize the things when colleagues can recognize each other as purveyors of knowledge.
Yeah, we've done different things on this date the past few years. This is certainly the most robust, diverse agenda. Given some big breakdowns, but obviously, data section. I know this is a topic discussion. Some other towns do this day earlier in the school year, and we made this shift a number of years ago because it would be like our Columbus Day, and we'd still get their feet underneath them. They didn't know what they needed yet. I think, at least from the bleachers, it seems like a much better idea to do it. Making this shift to January has been a wise one for us.
To borrow Rascal now, this is essentially our after, where we can make some adjustments based on the needs we're seeing from our colleagues and our students.
We appreciate that.
Quick question about the nursing. Children's providing, is that virtual?
Yes, webinars. Yep, and that they are attending the AI session with you in the morning, and then they'll spend the remainder of the day with programming from all sessions. I can see why not.
Perfect. Next up is old business. Other thoughts, something we can participate about.
Sure.
Would be reports that I have none. New business, transportation efficiency study.
So you have in your packets, I'm just I'm letting you through Google Meet. Richard Ree, who is author of this meeting. Rich, are you there? Can you hear me? can you hear me?
I can. Can you hear me?
Perfect. Yeah, it's perfect. Thank you very much. Anyway, you have in your in the packet the efficiency study that was commissioned by you through the fall. So the gentleman who we have used as our consultant, particularly going through the transportation bidding contract, has a great deal of expertise in this. And as I said, I'm really impressed with the work that Rich did on this. Kudos to you, Rich, because I think there's a tremendous amount of data that's shared. To me, the pieces that really jumped out were the two tables on pages 18 to 20. That is kind of a nice summary of our 3 tiers, the AM routes, and then also the PM routes. It got into the average time for each route, the number of buses, the number of routes, that sort of thing. But I think Rich highlighted what I would consider to be the most impactful data pieces at the very bottom, which is the scheduling load capacity and then the actual load capacity. So correct me if I'm wrong, Rich, by your definitions, the scheduled load capacity would be the percentage of students that are scheduled for any given bus or any given route versus the actual capacity of how many students could fit on the bus. And then the actual load capacity would be the actual ridership, percentage-wise, of how many students are actually on that bus for that route versus how many could actually be capacity. That's correct?
That is correct.
Okay. So in looking at all that data, the last 2 data points for the AM routes were scheduled at a 59% load capacity and 34.6% capacity for the actual ridership. And then when you look in the afternoon, it's very similar. The scheduling is at 59.2%, so a slight increase. And actually the PM is slightly more at 37%. So I think there's some disparities as far as empty buses versus full buses, but as the point Rich makes in some of the conclusions, is based upon these capacity pieces, those are relatively low capacities. Just so you know, the target scheduling load should be in the ballpark of around 70 to 80%, and the actual student rider load capacity should be about 65 to 75%. So you can see we're well below that. I think we've got to take a look at, and when we talk a little bit later tonight about what we're planning with regard to our transportation budget, I think we've got to look at how do we make that more efficient. We talked about consolidation of routes and so on. I think there's a portion of the report where we do look at other possibilities as far as do we reconfigure tiers as far as, instead of going from a 3-tier system to a 2-tier system. I think we've got a lot of pragmatic problems with that as far as having, say, Forestdale, Oak Ridge students together or Oak Ridge and middle high school students together. I think there'd be some significant concerns, but even with that, it would not be a cost-effective proposition. I think my memory serves me correctly. In Rich's report, we were talking about an addition of something like 6 buses to go to a 2-tier system. So I think the report is thorough. I think it gives us the data that we needed based upon many different discussions we've had, both at the full school committee and subcommittee level. But we've got Rich here via Google Meet. I'm curious to know if there's any questions that members have.
Anyone? Say it.
Do we know how, like, the length of time that I think in there, I can actually play through it quickly, but do we know if we eliminate one or two buses, do we know, like, an estimate of added time to students' time on the bus to and from school? Do we have like the idea of how much longer they would be spending on the bus, or?
Did you hear that question, Rich?
I cannot hear you. If you can repeat your question for me.
Sorry. So, if we eliminate the one to two buses, does that increase each student's individual time on the bus? Because we'd be adding more students to certain buses' routes, or do we have an idea about that at all?
Did you hear that, Rich?
I can hear you.
Okay, so the question is, if we were to get into a consolidation of routes, right now, per your analysis, the average route time is 24.4 minutes in total. With the consolidation of routes and eliminating a bus or two, how would that necessarily impact average route time, or the amount of time students riding bus?
The average route time probably increased by about 5 to 7 minutes on an average per route.
That's not bad.
Does necessitate early drop-offs at Q1, choose your patient.
Thank you.
You mentioned there's targets for schedule load and actual load. We have control over the schedule load. Actual load we don't necessarily, we can't control who drives and gets to school, who doesn't. But as far as the travel time, is there a commonly accepted standard? I mean, no parent wants their kid on the bus any longer than they need to be. I get that. I dealt with that when my kids were younger. But is there a target number that you plan for?
There's an outside parameter for Tier 1, which is your high school route, middle school route, that you don't want kids looking longer than 60 minutes. And then at the end of the day, your 4-scale drop-offs at the end of the day, you don't want those ones to be longer than 60 minutes. And the time in between is limited by your bell standards. So when you look at the average time, you have to remember that it takes 5 to 7 minutes to load and unload students also.
You said 60, 1 hour, correct? Make sure I heard you correctly. But the upper limit was 60 minutes, is that what you said?
Yeah, 60 minutes is really the maximum that standard is for children and buses.
I would agree.
Yeah, particularly for younger students, you wouldn't want a situation where they're on the bus that long.
And to clarify, anyone who's not answer home, that's something we're looking at is we're trying to get a benchmark. When they do this planning, what is the benchmark they use? That's all. Another question, the schedule load in the report says 1856. Our student population is 2,100 and change. Why the differential? I would never do this before, I didn't catch that, probably not.
Kids remember the elemental workers. Even though we have Viola, that's a state law, and that's what you.
Yeah, that's in the report, I have to read that. That would be 250.
The schedule load is your eligible riders.
our school choice, that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, so that automatically takes them out. And we're up to about 156 school choice.
So three school choice blockers.
Yeah.
It was useful to find out from the report that, you know, thinking that we might have a significant number of students eligible to walk and not take the bus, that number is negligible in terms of its impact on costs, so that kind of puts that notion to bed.
Sure. And correct me if I'm wrong, Rich. I think it's really, really easy, and this is going to sound a little bit silly, but you actually have to kind of map what's out via how a car would drive in thinking about that 1.5, 2 mile perimeter circumference around the school. Okay, and I think one of the key things folks need to know is your driveways to Forestdale and Oak Ridge are almost 1/2 mile in itself. So that eats up. So I honestly, initially I was thinking, wow, that seems very low as far as the number of students living within 1.5, 2 miles away from each of our schools. But then I kind of thought to myself, oh, it's not as a crow flies. It's actually physically driving a car or walking to the school, correct?
That's correct. The measurement is actually from the unloading point at the school to where the driveway meets the street at the residence.
Can't be cutting through the woods.
It can't be,
And we've got a lot of kids at Forestdale and at the high school. That's exactly how they get to school. Okay.
Not to mention that Quaker and 130 are two of the busiest roads in town, and all those neighborhoods, none of the neighborhoods have sidewalks. So,
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I know that the high school ridership rates were based on 2 per seat. At the Forestdale and Oak Ridge level, were your calculations done assuming 2 or 3 riders per seat?
I could understand.
Kaylee wants to know, the calculations were done at the middle high school assuming 2 riders per seat. But what about Forestdale and Oak Ridge? Does that also assume 2 riders per seat?
No, it was 3 riders per seat at the elementary levels, and high school, middle school was 2 riders per seat.
Okay. So both Forestdale and Oak Ridge assume, because realize Oak Ridge is a span of grades 3 through 6.
I'm sorry, Oak Ridge was also 47 because of the grade reach.
So it was 2 per seat.
2 per seat, correct.
Whereas Forestdale was 3.
Correct.
Okay. Makes sense. Big difference between a 5-year-old and a 12-year-old.
Remember the 13-inch seats.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
Just wanted to make sure, thank you.
It seems like the problem for us to solve is at the high school, but the time the buses arrive to the time that they're permitted to enter the building. And that's a problem for us to solve, but the report had some suggestions about how we might think with that. I didn't realize students were sitting on the bus waiting to be led.
And we actually had a very at our district leadership team meeting this morning, we actually had a very healthy discussion about it. And I think there's our bus company and the driver's perception of things versus Gene Nelson and the admin team. And I was pretty, we discussed it and asked a lot of questions. It generally is not a problem at Oak Ridge as far as late arrival of buses. I think the bigger challenge is early arrival of the buses because the routes really aren't that long, but they're arriving at something like 6:55 in some cases. So there was a discussion very early on in the school year because realize contractually our professional staff does not have to be at their posts until 7:15. So I think they worked it out So I don't think that that's necessarily a huge issue.
Is that something, I mean, I know what our halftime is, Dr. Cook said that, not for us, want to change things to extreme, but, you know, in future years, maybe, depending upon that bus, maybe the pickups can start a little bit later, to still get there on time.
Yeah.
That kid, the high school kid gets 5 more minutes of sleep, which they only need. But the takeaway is, right now, at least, first look at this, we're confident we can eliminate 2 buses.
Correct.
But the third, to go to a third, because I did ask everybody, I did not info everybody for anything with that, I did ask just questions, but a third would be kind of tripwire based on sequencing more than not so much load factor, but sequencing in time.
Schedule placement of the children, what those schedules, or what game on independence. It's kind of on the day, so it's all the easiest one.
A lot of moving parts, but Stevens.
This may be irrelevant, but I noticed in my neighborhood, there are 2 different buses, because our neighborhood, we do have a kind of large neighborhood, but I don't see why one bus wouldn't pick up all of the students in that neighborhood, because I have noticed that there are 2 different buses for Forestdale and Oak Ridge who come through our neighborhood. One picks and drops up half the neighborhood, and the other one picks up and drops off the other half of the neighborhood. So I feel like that could be.
Because that also may have to do with where that bus is done, might have to be on maybe kind of like a northern part of the neighborhood, more like the southern part of the
And then going to
so they
like
go
Forest
like
Dale.
two opposite directions, and you pick up other kids along.
I think there's got to be a recalibration. You know, I know Rich talks a lot about the routing software that's used. I think in a perfect world, you figure out how do you, in recalculate routes, how do you calibrate it so that it's equal? But is it like, okay, we're going to take these 4 routes and consolidate them down to 2, and everything else is just going to stay status quo? I don't think it would be something like that. But to also be fair, if you go through the report and you look at the AM and PM routes, I think Rich highlighted them in blue. You've got some routes there that have some small ridership numbers. And so I think that there's ample places where you could have a consolidation.
And the actual ridership is a whole different issue. We only have so much control over that. That idea. Ours is was part of sector, but something for future years, what we can do to address that and see, find more efficiencies. Because right now, as it is, everyone's excited for the buses coming by not everybody's house because it's pickup zones, but if people aren't using it, how can we find more efficiency? No, but I'm sure the other time might do nothing.
Especially with AM. Some of the AM is real. I mean, I can see it PM, that understand for what reasons too. I picked up several.
But believe it or not, according to the data, the PM ridership is slightly, not by a huge margin, like 2.4%, but it's slightly greater.
A lot of people drop kids off because they head off to work.
No, I did it. Well, no, I did.
Yeah.
Whereas some aren't home, so they're letting the kids take the bus home.
Or to wherever they find for their kids.
So you drop a lot of kids out at daycares and.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions?
Thank you, Rich. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Joe.
Have a great evening.
Thank you, Rudy. Good night.
Right. And our former colleague asked if the $5,000 was worthwhile
expense. I wish all our expenditures had this kind of return on investment.
Next up is the FY '27 budget presentations. First up is facilities, Mr. Michael Ryan. I came from coaching a middle school basketball game, and I'm dressed for football.
Need the one.
One seven, so.
All right, so we're looking at the first slide, which is the operational budget. And I'll be touching on categories that reflect any change or large budget items. So the first up at the top is the travel and operational expenses that show uniform reimbursements for my staff. Also travel reimbursements for staff who use their personal vehicles, any professional licenses, and trainings. And the next one I'm going to hit on is the custodial supplies, which is paper products, trash bags, chemical, handle equipment like fiber mops, and vacuums. And there's an increase at the high school, and that is because matches the historical spending and some better shoes, so that's some increases over the next year. The next category I'll hit is contracted services, and that's our largest category. And it does look like there's a decrease, but it really remains right about flat from the previous year after the removal of the Chapter 70 funds that are awarded by the town and add to the budget mid-year. So that number, like I said, is our largest category. It's reflective of maintenance contracts and existing purchase orders such as pest control, fire alarm, HVAC operational, and preventative maintenance, painting, building alarms, card access, our work order system, that software, and it also includes the $12,000 for flooring. The maintenance of vehicles is increased to catch up on deferred maintenance. We have a really aged fleet. That's right, it's like repair the vehicles, inspection stickers. We're making it work with our current fleet now, but we're using some recurrent special education events and upwards of 4,000 miles. So that's really something that we want to focus on. And not shown here, but in the transportation budget, there is about $1,000 for a new transit for our maintenance staff. We'll go to the next slide. And this is our.
I actually asked about the contract service drop. Michelle corrected me last week, and I still forgot about it, so I apologize for that.
So the next slide is our administrative building, which is separate from our operational budget. And I created a HVAC random maintenance contract that was added to FY26 and carried to FY27. It's a new building as far as we have moving HVAC equipment. We want to make sure we're taking care of it, so we're all life it. We do have an outside landscape contractor that supplements our grounds staff at the end of the building. And that budget was increased to match the current contract. There is a reduction in utility costs, and that's just reflective of the building's historical spending on electricity in the last 100 years to move ahead. And then we'll move on to the next slide, which is our district-wide utilities budget. And again, these numbers are reflective of historical spending and reflect the increased delivery charges that we're seeing across the board. Oak Ridge Electric was increased to account for anticipated higher electricity usage through the HVAC project. But we're really going to need a full year of data before we get up at our projection for FY28. At Forestdale, it shows a reduction, and that's just accounts for historical spending based on what we're seeing from our utility bills. There is a large increase in the high school for electricity, and that's due to FY26 and FY25 being largely underfunded. We are actively pursuing energy reduction through energy audits, replacing aged equipment, and most importantly, updating our road automation system. And both the systems data to the high school using new boilers in both gas and electric. Slide 4 is it's a snapshot of the former President Obama the last couple of years, continuing this year. So there are 90 classrooms located over in Forestdale, and between the two classrooms, there's 4 classrooms that still need to have carpet removed to be replaced by the LVT tile or footing everywhere. There's 18 classrooms that currently have all VCT tile. That's tile with certain racks each summer, but that should be replaced with LVT for uniformity. Right? So we want one flooring material for needed maintenance and aesthetics purposes. We still have original carpet in some offices, like the occupational therapy, physical therapy, the social worker suites, also the Oak Ridge band room. So that should be equipped for future work as well. This past summer, we did 9 classrooms, 2 at Oak Ridge and, 2 at Forestdale and 7 at Oak Ridge. And we did another 5 classrooms a little bit this past winter break at Oak Ridge Elementary School. And we have another 6 at Forestdale, plus half the library that will be done over the February and April school breaks. We have a current contract with Mass Flooring. We did the work this past break to do another 12 classrooms at both FY27 and FY28. Move to the next slide.
Can you go back to that for a second?
Absolutely.
What's VCT stand for?
Vinyl composite tile.
Okay, as compared to
Luxury vinyl tile. Yes. VCT is like this typical 9x9 you see everywhere, and that gets that stripped wax every summer so that it shines when the students come back. LVT, you don't have to wax this because, people will say it's maintenance free. You do have to do a dry mop once a day or wet mop once a week to prolong life in it, but it is usually less maintenance than the VCT.
Okay, so at this, I'm doing math in my head for big. After FY27, how much are you gonna have left in the facilities of power?
So with the current contract we're working with Task Force, we do another 12 next year, but we can certainly increase that number. Just, right now we did a number of work this past summer. We did work over the breaks. We're planning on doing most of the work that we have contracted this coming summer, but still make use of the breaks as well. So if we did finish the work we have here and then do another 12 next year, we have approximately, we had 25-ish classrooms left, but again, we could increase the number that we've been doing, that we're planning to do next year.
So 25, and you've got 25 remaining, will you 500? Right, given that's the current.
Yeah, and that's not including the rooms that already have VCT or the other spaces, like I said, those offices, or the Oak Ridge campus. All right, yeah, so like I said, the facilities department is, we have a prior focus on operational repair and maintenance. Structurally, the buildings are in good shape, but I think they will need a facelift. It's a TLC. So the flooring work is helping a lot, but I think we really want to focus in the next year on painting the entryways, stairwells, corridors, as well as attention to detail and custodial and maintenance requests. We're working on implementing preventative maintenance contracts or in-house programs to maintain current equipment to long life. One of the things I do want to touch on the 2022 block project. So far, about $10.5 million of the 30 has been spent. That's been on the playgrounds at Oak Ridge and Forestdale. The building envelope work that was done with all 3 schools, waterproofing work. The central office conversion, and then the most recent, the Oak Ridge HVAC project. Boiler replacements at Oak Ridge and Forestdale were part of the original scope from the block project. I know they're being fit out to be replaced this summer. And additional building envelope work at San Francisco High Schools, we still have some ongoing leaks, is where the remainder of that bond money would go to. So the money that's set aside for the Forestdale HVAC project would be funded in a future way.
That's gonna be the one piece that is not completed off the original work, is that correct?
Yes. And then, so like I said, budget requests for FY27 were modest, I'd say, due to the ongoing facilities conditions assessment. So we're working on getting a professional detailed report on immediate and future needs, and that's going to really help us frame out the next 5-10 years for our capital plan. That's all I have for now. Any questions?
Dr. Mello.
Just a question, it's not criticism, the amount, this is great, but I'm just wondering why we have to outsource grants to the central law.
Yeah, so our staff, we have 100 acres of grounds that the staff maintains. I think it's like 46 acres of space that we like actively maintain. We include sports fields and fields about 9 elementary schools. So we have 2 staff who do that, and they're starting to really thin. So, you know, they could have thought that, you know, this is a project that's carried over from the previous administration, but they said that I think if there's fields to be cut or lined or sports fields that need to be worked on for us to become the grass staff, yeah, so we use it for use of time.
Any other questions?
Just so you know, we got an email, it was this morning or last evening, also alert for New Haven Associates. We should have the first draft of the facility commission's assessment Friday.
There goes your weekends. Just mechanical question. I'm looking at the facility unit salaries. Where the facilities admin assistant would be about this time. Where is that captured?
You figured out to be below.
Okay.
Basically, there's more that's involved with the facilities, records and stuff, so that those names can be very sound.
Yeah, how many years we've been doing this for? I would love to collectively, at least, you know, the kids never, a couple of years ago on 30-year-old Carver, now on 33-year-old Carver. If we could, you know, we could find any more money to make work, if we could get this done faster. I would be all about it. Maybe we'll see whether bids come in for this on the oil projects. I'd be all about doing everything we can to accelerate that. I think it's best time for some of these kids. It's not just for the teachers. We did that.
So like, just to touch on that, right? So the contract break that, the contract did the work, the would break and just continue to do work, and schedule the work at like 728. They came in at about 8,500 per classroom, and previous we were paying about 10. So there's going to be more money, you know, just based on we're paying less for paying less than what we were getting the same before. So there's definitely the opportunity to do some more classrooms and do the funds that 200 that set aside for each year.
Is that a fixed quote based on number of classrooms, or is it like a definite?
Yeah, so
is it a fixed price for as many classrooms as we can give them money for?
Right. The initial this year was for 11 classrooms and then half of the library. So yes, 11 classrooms, half of the library, and then 12 at subsequent years. But we'd be able to because that. It was like with an option to do another 12 classrooms next year or not. So it's going to go all for labor increase based on real wage and then material increases. That's just for the 12 classrooms. So the increases there would be based on that number. So it would still be available funds if it was $200,000 a year for next year after.
But you know, we find $8,500 somewhere. We could do a 13th classroom to okay. Yeah, that's the other thing. None of this is going to be cheaper. So the sooner we do it, it's better for our kids and cheaper. Just kind of philosophic. I mean, it's beyond the scope of the operational budget. You know, if you had that, my colloquialism, if you had $5, where would you put it? You know, what's the next most pressing facilities needs in your eyes? And I realize it's also a short time, a little bit more, a few months, but what are you seeing?
So where I would want to focus would be the high school. Just we had a lot of locker room issues for I think going back a long period of time. But that's something that has been active projects that is trying to attack. But we really, through the ball project, done pieces of it, but not 100%. So that would be where I want to focus. That's where I would focus my next project. As far as I know, we have money set aside in the bond, but that's what I want to focus on. The removing the greenhouse that still leads into the pool, and working on the windows that lead to the cafeteria and the library. But there's plenty of other opportunities as well, right? So we have building automation is something that I do more focus on because that will be able to schedule the heating and cooling, and then do lightings in high school and then the subsequent elementary school, kind of help with utility costs and all of that. Also updating the fan coils that are in all of high school classrooms and then the HVAC equipment that starts at school. Those are big energy users and they're very engaged. People are all put in 2001 for the renovation.
Any other questions? I think the report that is developed, we can have the draft something on Friday, we'll frame it, but beyond the operational budget, for that bond that we did 5 years ago, it was the spring of 2022. So we're kind of into the 5th year of that, and that was a 5-year plan. There was a 5 to 10 year plan, a 10 to 15 year plan to continue to do other projects that were needed for our aging infrastructure. So obviously the 5-year-old plan that needs to be updated. We'll do that. It's probably to be based on that study, but I think it's important that we all remember beyond this operational budget, beyond that bonds. That was just the first phase of what's eventually going to be deployed. So, any other questions? Thank you, sir. Very much appreciate it. Thank you. And next up is Pupil Services with Sealy.
Good evening. So the first slide, I am not going to torture you and read all of that. But the purpose of me putting it there is because I think when we look at budgets, we look at all these numbers, right? And I wanted to just start the presentation by talking about the fact that in this budget, we're talking about our most vulnerable population. We're talking about students who really require direct instruction, access to their environment and their curriculum. And so it's not lost on me that special education takes a large portion of the operational budget. But I'm very grateful that it was made clear to me from starting in September that inclusivity is a priority for this district. And so keeping that in mind and being creative in the way we look at alternative funding sources and really doing a deep dive into the resources that we already have and making sure that we're using those effectively and efficiently. That's sort of where I took an approach for the budget. So I wanted to have you know where I'm coming from. So with that being said, the first portion of the budget was an area where we could do a little bit of decreasing, and not that we were decreasing existing resources or services that we have in district, but this decrease is more to do with right sizing. So looking at what we expended in FY25 compared to what we had budgeted for, and those numbers came in lower than what was expected in the previous year. So you'll see that there are some decreases in many of these line items. The one area where I'd like to increase very slightly is our special education testing and assessments, because there was a slight overage during FY25 where we wanted to account for. The second portion of our budget looks pretty similar with the exception of 2 areas, which we'll talk about in a minute. But as you can see, 2 of those line items were, again, decreases based on the fact that we didn't expend what we had anticipated in spending prior, and then an increase with our psychological supplies. So those are things like people protocols for evaluations that we needed to order. So just making sure that we're not going over that line, a slight increase there. Where we have a major increase is special education out of district tuitions, which I'm going to talk about a little bit more in depth in the next slide. But that really, with that increase, it brought us to an overall budget difference of $201,728. So when we do look at that out of district expenditure, I think this is an area that is the least predictable of all the special education line items. We have a general idea of the students who are already placed in out of district placements and what their tuitions look like, but you always can have a student move into town who has already been placed in an out of district placement, and then we would own that tuition. And so because of that, you ebb and flow, and you also have different populations of students that may require that level of restrictiveness. So the increase here is for a couple of reasons. We had a few students who were added to our added district roster. And when we budgeted for students who were currently attending and as well as projected students. So, you know, a few students who are currently undergoing some evaluations with potential need for more restricted placement. So we considered those numbers when we were looking at the overall tuitions. The other piece of increase here is the operational services division, the OSD, comes out with a yearly projected rate. This year it's 3.04%. So that really applies to your private placements primarily, that they would follow that percent rate increase. Our collaboratives typically fall in line with what the OSD projects. They don't necessarily have to. That's based on their own budgeting and their own enrollment. Those specific numbers for collaboratives don't necessarily come yet. They haven't completed their own budgets, but typically they fall within that OSD price range. So given that, that's how this was calculated using that 3.04%. The other piece to note here with out of district is our circuit breaker reimbursement. So we do get money back for some of our tuition reimbursement. And so there is a calculation that is used, which the next slide will kind of explain that. But using our current tuitions that we're forecasting, we would also then predict receiving 1.37 million to help offset the total cost of tuitions here. That does not include transportation costs, so that's another thing we can claim when we do our final claim in June for circuit breaker, which would likely increase that dollar figure. And so I kind of talked a little bit about alternative funding sources as being the place of creativity for special education. Circuit breaker's pretty cut and dry. It really covers our added district tuitions. The formula that's used to kind of figure this out is that we get a clean threshold. So you would take the cost of the tuition, you would subtract the clean threshold, and then you would find 75% of that number, and that's what we could then potentially get back in reimbursement. 75% has been the percentage that they have given us back for the last, I'd say, at least 4, maybe 5 years. So I would anticipate that that's not going to change. And so again, you see that anticipated number for FY27, which does not include transportation. So again, and then we have our federal grants. So we have our IDEA 240 and our 262. 262 is really for our early ed programs, and historically has covered the partial salary for a pre-K ESP. Which is pretty typical to use the 260. Many districts use it for that same capacity. And you can see just in the past years, we kind of hover around that 10,000 mark that we receive. It changes, but that's pretty much what we got. The 240, however, it has a little bit more leverage because you can use it for a lot of different things. We tend to use it for additional ESP support. We use it for professional development, for helping to offset some contracted serve money in the general budget. We use it for technology, so we're able to purchase a lot of iPads and apps that students might need for communication, for assistive tech, and any kind of instructional supplies. This year, we are looking at doing some consulting work with an agency that works primarily with inclusive practices and co-teaching. And so that will be funded through the 240 as well. They'll be coming on site, doing some coaching, some professional development, as well as program review. So as you can see, we kind of have the high 600,000 range, and I would anticipate, unless something drastic changes at the federal level, we'll get something similar for next year. So with that, I thought about some focus areas that not only would impact, or hopefully impact positive student outcome, but also might have some positive implications for the budget overall. I think some areas that we could be looking at, one would be programming. So I think that first bullet talks about pre-K. We have an increasing number of students who are being referred from early intervention, or just exhibiting some challenges with communication, with learning needs, and so with that, we're finding our pre-K program needs expanding. So we've sort of assessed the current structure and trying to look at, again, our resources and our staffing and how can we use that to be most efficient. And so with the help of Forest Hill staff, we've looked at restructuring our pre-K programs that will allow for several more special education spots for our students so that we are able to keep up with that increase in early childhood need. Another area that I think would help us grow is our transition programming. We often use students to out of district around that high school year or that postgraduate year because they're looking for more transition work. They're looking for something a little bit different in their 18 to 22 adult life before they age out. And so looking at enhancing and really creating a true postgraduate program at the high school level where they might house at the high school, but it's sort of a program separate unto itself, where students are having community engagement, would really help the students that they will be prepared for age out at 22 and maybe be able to make connections within the community that would lead to instant paid employment. But would also potentially help us with some of those out-of-district referrals that if they were getting the services with us in Sandwich, they wouldn't need to seek that alternative placement elsewhere. So that's personally a passion project for me. That population of student is a population near and dear to my heart, so that's something that I want to just work on as a project, but also I think it would have some positive fiscal benefit for us. And then maximizing our current staffing, making sure that what we have, the staff that we have, they're wonderful and they are very much effective, but are we using them in the most efficient way? And so just ensuring compliance and efficiency within the department. Looking at our federal funding and maximizing what we can do with that federal funding. So again, that would be that creativity part I talked about. We know that we want to strengthen our inclusive practices in co-teaching, and so we can put that in the 240 grant and do that through professional development and consultation. That's a place where we can fund that project that maybe wouldn't be able to fund in other areas. Using it to support and enhance our development. So again, as I talk about the pre-K program, as I talk about the transition program, some of that might have fiscal implication if we're trying to grow a program from within, but we can use the 240 to sort of offset what we might need as we make those potential changes. And then to offset that cost of contract services, we're already doing that. Contract service seems to be one of the heaviest lines in the special education budget, so using 240 to help offset some of those costs. That's been really helpful, but sort of on that same track, decreasing the need for contract services. And so in order to do that, in order to not need an outside consultancy agency to come in, making sure that we have really strong in-house procedures and systems in place where we don't need somebody to come in and do program evaluations or reviews or fee structures for us. So really analyzing that piece of things. Another way to offset the contract serve is partnering with surrounding districts. So the population of special ed directors in Massachusetts is relatively small. We know each other, and we all have different pockets of interest and experience, and so in that world, utilizing that to our benefit. If there is a neighboring district that needs an program evaluation from a non-staffed entity, they could have me go out, when I would be happy to do an observation, and have vice versa, have another director come in. And that way you're not paying for an outside agency, but you are working within your director's pool for resources and for some of that outside guidance. And then again, evaluating sort of the cost of our contracted services opposed to what it would look like if we just hired within. We have a lot of contracted services that are behavior specialists or related services or coming in to sort of cover different pockets where we're not able to maintain compliance. When we have psychological testing that we get a waiver of psychological testing, we have to have an outside provider come in and do some of that testing. It can become very costly because those are independent contracts. So I'd like to further explore what it would look like if we were able to just hire some of those people. If we need to hire some of those people, if the work is there, and then what would that cost look like compared to having to continue to contract out with agencies that are setting rates that are beyond, what we would be look at in our internal contract. So those are carrots.
Just our under 22-year-old students, post-high school grad. What does their experience look like? In other words, how many of them spend with now big time in sandwich buildings versus going to Project Forward or Bridgewater has college program for CSS college program for students?
Yeah, so each is individualized. There are many students who go to Project Forward. I think that from my perspective, they probably spend a little bit more time in the sandwich buildings than I would care for, which is why it's an area that I'd love to grow upon. I envision sort of this population of students when you are walking in your graduation, you're receiving your certificate with your peers, only to then return that next year to the same exact place to be in grade 13 is not appropriate. So what I'd like to do is really build an adult-based program that prepares students for that next step of life, where academics are really no longer the priority. It's the connection to the community. It's those real-world application of skill. And so where they may not be in the building, that might be the hub, that might be the starting point, but they may be spending a majority of their day with community partnerships, even eating lunch on the job street, because to be in a cafeteria with younger peers, again, we want to promote their adulthood and their independence, and so that would be kind of what I would be looking at. Any other questions?
Yes? Well, I don't mean my area of expertise, but I'm very interested in that civic piece. I know you developed something that you highly regarded in the previous district. 83 basketball games last night. I was supposed to talk to two parents that were talking about that very program. And so personally, I look forward to hearing more about that. I look forward to beyond just the right thing for our, I was going to say kids, but it'd be young adults. But if we can invest internally, give them the right program that keeps them home, and we save a couple out of district tuitions, it actually might, it's an investment that's actually could potentially be a savings.
Yeah, and I think I've walked through many out-of-district placements, and this is not a knock at out-of-district placements by any means, but I oftentimes find myself saying, well, what are they doing that we can't do? And of course, we can't replicate the smallness of the school environment or the fact that they're a standalone building. And we can't always replicate the size of the concept, but there are so many programmatic and structural things that we can replicate. And then we can brand and make it our own sandwich program. And so, again, there's benefit for students who really need that level of restricted setting, but I always want to take a lens of not removing students from their general ed peers because they are entitled to be part of this community.
So you just had me thinking, you know, we want to keep them in district, you know, versus out of district. And like you said, what are they doing? Then we can't you. I guess, you know, one of my questions is, I know that there are some school districts, so if you have a child who gets services outside of school and home, some of them have somebody that comes and works with them daily, social, emotional skills, you know, everything that you can possibly think of. Do we allow those, so I guess, for example, like someone who receives BDA services outside, sure, okay. They have to receive those services after the school day, which then makes the day longer, which becomes stressful.
Challenging.
Very challenging for everyone involved. Do we allow those therapists to come into the school and work alongside that student throughout their day? To kind of, you know, somebody that they're comfortable with, that they've been working with for however many years, and then that kind of also gives them that same like routine of, I know this person, I work with this person, it's the same, you know, thing that we have done. I know that that will probably involve like the, you know, health insurance, approving that kind of thing, and then, you know, certain policies around it, having that person in the building for that specific student, but I didn't know if that is.
Yeah,
So the thing.
So yes and no. What I would say is, you know, oftentimes, because what you're referring to is sort of a home service, right?
Yes.
And I think what you're talking about is more insurance-based, that doesn't have that through line or that connection to school. Because there are home services that the school sometimes funds after doing a home evaluation. And so in those cases, what I would say is that the district is contracting, what I have done in the past, I should say, is that when the district is contracting with an outside provider, like a Paces or a Horizons, and then that can happen. You know, we have had AKs, we have had BCBAs that we contract with outside agencies come in during the day and work with students, absolutely. The insurance-based piece gets a little bit wonky because it's not something that is funded through the district. We have had outside providers request to come in and do observations or consult with the classroom teacher to help provide that consistency.
Yeah.
So that is something we can do. And we would just like schedule that out so that we would have an administrator available to kind of help facilitate that. But I would say it's worth it, you know, an individualized conversation at a team meeting to speak. But yeah, it gets a little bit muddy when the provider is not somebody who's either hired through the district or consult, you know,
Well, and I know that Child and Family Services, they have a program, and I think it's more so for like people who are like high school, but it's kind of like a big brother and sister thing where they have someone who comes and like spends their day with this individual throughout the day as part of like the in-home service, but they're not actually in the home, they're like out in the world, going through their daily schedule with them, you know, going to school and whatever they do after school. And I know that is something that they offer through Child and Family Services.
Yeah.
And I think that you know, could be potentially an awesome thing to have, you know, if they did it for younger kids, you know.
Yeah.
But also work with them through those social emotional things because they are getting those services anyway.
Yeah, and to create that agency partnership too.
Yeah.
Any other questions, comments? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next up is teaching and learning. And this one.
The design of our slide deck harkens back to your former colleague, Mr. Fisher, so we tried to keep it to 3 slides. But the opening image also is a little bit jarring, but also represents the type of teaching and learning we hope to see. So this is an image from our forensics class. So our budget is driven in part by providing the fundamentals to students, but also creating opportunities for students to get to engage in real-world, hands-on relevant learning that has clear trajectories for where they want to ultimately work. So just to recap for how we treat this process, the vision of our district create belonging, growth, and leadership is at the core of it. Jen and I sit down and go line by line with every investment we made last year. We use data, discussion with colleagues, and then usage data to inform our reductions. And then we look for targeted reinvestments to help align with our strategy. So we try to make the most of each dollar to do both our core work, the curriculum resources, but also some explore work to make things like you see here, our deeper learning work possible.
So overall in the teaching and learning budget, we do have a 2.5% decrease for next year. That's for the most part realized under the school-wide curriculum supply line. As everyone is well aware, over the past 3 years, we've implemented new literacy and mathematics curriculum at the elementary level and mathematics at the grade 7 and 8 level. And oftentimes, a new curriculum implementation has greater upfront costs. So we are now moving into year 4 with our programs and are fortunate to be able to reduce some of those costs, mainly when you first purchase literacy curriculum, for example, we're outfitting all of our elementary classrooms with extensive classroom libraries. We have small replenishment of that, but it's nowhere near the initial upstart cost of that. So you'll see that $22,305 decrease there. So more minimal decreases, but still decreases nonetheless to our system-wide PD. We're fortunate we've been able to shift some of our professional development costs to grants. We also are really trying to build capacity within and utilize all the expertise that we have within our own staff for internal facilitation professional development. We are also, as a result of being further down the line with our core curriculum implementations, we don't have those startup costs of extensive kind of serial PD, whereas, for example, the first year of our literacy implementation, we had 13 professional development sessions for our caseless teachers, and that is no longer the case. All of our literacy professional development this past year has been internal from our instructional coaches, which is fantastic.
I'm sure they're heartbroken mental health.
Yes. And then for the technology curriculum, we have one of the lines it's about putting, we'll bring that to you shortly. So the curriculum-wide software, we had a decrease of 4%. A couple areas there that we in the budget previously, talking points would allow families to communicate, or teachers to communicate with their multilingual families and their language of choice. We've shifted to ParentsSquare, which helped us to consolidate some of those services. The other thing, taking into account inflation, we've also tried to trim down some of those nice-to-have supplemental software and trying to lean a little bit more heavily on our core software. Also built in this budget from our last school community, the Running Bird class, which is our Oak Ridge early literacy screener, is built in that budget. And then a new investment this year is Emblaze, which is a internship management software that allows for students to check in using GPS on their phones to at the site location. It has the internship coordinator verify that, and it also allows for listing internships, have students reflect on internships. So as we move to more of that internship and innovation through pathway program expansion, this software is really essential. Let's manage some of the list of this one, I'll turn it over to you. Unlimited questions.
Just a question on the textbooks. Is that to accommodate the pathways?
So for the textbook, that as part of our strategic plan, we identified a curriculum review cycle. So we're riding that process. What we want to make sure is that if there was a cost to piloting, which sometimes occurs, and we have money set aside, that we'd be able to purchase like a small amount of materials for teachers to try the curriculum resource before they implement it. So we want to have a comprehensive process.
Dr. Miller, question.
You are unlimited in questions. So.
I was trying to think of what the right term was last week. Sometimes it's a bit, I could build up to this, but sometimes it's a bit, than that. Some it's just, it's nuts and bolts, it's about super exciting stuff. I'm on board. Dramatic joke.
Sure. Teaching and learning is not super. Listen, we had
My poor choice of words, like I say, Dr. Norris always speaks better than that. It's not dramatic changes, it's continuous improvement, but it's not wild swings that really catch your eye. It's just keep going. At that point, I'll just stop talking.
I was much better. Say that.
Any questions for Ms. Clerk, Dr. Klein? No, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
And since we're talking about technology, Mr. Falcone.
I don't think Mike has been here before, but I'd like to introduce everybody to Mike Falcone, who is our, yes, it's the party. Mike joined us, I think, the first week of December, so he's literally been on the job for 4 weeks now.
This Dumpy got like 3 days.
Yeah, he literally, the budgets were due his third day on the job. So, Michelle was extremely helpful. We had a series of meetings. A lot of this is, quite frankly, kind of carryover of the great work that Bryce did. But I do want to point out, we're in outstanding hands with Mike. Mike comes to us after, how many years in Falmouth? 26 years in Falmouth.
You could lean a little closer to the mic so people can hear you.
26 years in Falmouth, and worked his way up the ranks in the last several in the same exact position as technology director of the Falmouth Public Schools. So welcome aboard for the umpteenth time, and it's great to have you here, Mike.
And apologies on me either, sir.
It's all right.
Over to you.
That's a problem. All right, these are all the budget lines I have. We try to keep them basically the same from last year where we could. This is just a quick overview. If you look, it's pretty much all funded. If you want to move on to the next slide, I kind of grouped the different lines into similar things here. So the computers and hardware, that's the physical things. The smart boards, we need to start mounting the boards in the walls of high school. Right now they're on carts, which take a lot of space, but there's wires hanging off. It's kind of a safety and a maintenance issue. Hoping to get as many of those done this summer as I can, depending on the cost side of running estimates on that yet. The Wi-Fi at the high school and at Forestdale School, it's all hitting its end of life in December, so we need to replace that to have a secure wireless network. That I've done some initial quotes already, because we put it out to bid, so we get E-rate reimbursement, which covers about 50% of the cost of that to us. So it was really important to get out there in December when we did. Parts and supplies, that's the boring stuff. Some screens here and there, batteries, wheels, nothing exciting. And these are the big ones, and they're both kind of related. And these are the costs that you're going to see trending upwards every year: software licenses and curriculum software. The curriculum software, you'll see kind of ebbing and flowing a little bit, but it'll continue to go up because costs go up a lot. A lot of the curriculum software, they'll charge a lot up front. Like if you get a curriculum with a 10-year curriculum, you end up paying for most of it in the first 2 or 3 years. So that's why you'll see more fluctuations in that, whereas the regular software licensing tends to just slowly creep up. We have a lot of Power School products, things that I think it's pretty hard to increase it. In the software technology licensing, as we also have our internet and our connection between the school buildings, which that's also gets some reimbursements. Contract services,
it's maintenance on that equipment. We have to get inspections in like the auditorium at the high school, so the rigging doesn't fall down on kids' heads or anything like that. You never lose it. Anything where we have, vendors have to come and take care of things that's under the contract services. And then PD and travel, so my staff go to the Mass Street Conference. We don't do a lot of travel, so you see we brought that down and more reflect the actual spending we actually have on it every year. That's the gist of it.
Questions? No, I don't know. Chromebooks. I know they're on a three-year cycle.
Yeah.
Are they, like, I know
Yeah.
every time you get a phone, they keep the price point the same, so they have more stuff.
Yeah,
Are they coming down at all, or are they the same price?
They're pretty much the same price. There's very little margins on the hardware itself, so the vendors don't have a lot of profit in them, so they slowly creep up. I don't see them ever coming down. As you mentioned, we gotta keep them for about 3 years. Every year we get grades 7, 10, and 3, and that's about a little over $200,000 cost to get it all of them. It's and that includes the device itself, the warranty on the device, and then the licensing to Google on the device. And actually this year we're between cycles on staff devices, so next year we don't have to buy a lot of teacher computers.
Questions? No. Mr. Falcone, welcome aboard. Thank forward to working with you more. I'll bid you a lot, make that mistake twice, and thank you very much. Next up is Central Admin Transportation District-wide expenses. Ms. Michelle Austin and Marushi guy or something.
Yeah. There's no hard E's in there. A lot of consonants. So this is pretty straightforward. This is kind of our expenses for central office. As far as on the expense side, for the most part, it's level funded. Kind of the theme that we have heard from presenters is just kind of right sizing, kind of taking a look at what do we actually spend for FY 25 and kind of going through purchase orders and so on. Really, there's one line that jumps out. It's a big percentage, but it's relatively. I looked at my contractual services, 86%. What's the deal with that? And Michelle and I had a conversation. When we've done things like pizzas for our kids, for say like the Student Advisory Council, it's come out of that line. But we've also used it for PD for staff, PD for students. Dave has started a series of lunches called Food for Thought at the middle high school. For example, taking a group of 8th graders, having them in on Friday from 12 to 1, feed them, but then also brainstorm around issues like that and so on. So that is kind of a catch-all line for things of that sort. The business office also kind of level funded, or actually it's a slight decrease. Really one line jumps out there, and that is the contractual services. It's a decrease for the simple reason of lesser audit is needed. By state law, every 3 years is the student activities audit, which is an extremely important one. This coming year for FY27 is an off year for that, so it's down.
So we're doing that. Is that done this year? Yeah. We do. Was it all done? Okay. Maybe we can brief out on it.
Absolutely. Transportation as we discussed before, and as I discussed last week, in kind of giving the overall budget, we're looking at consolidation of a couple buses, and consolidation of a couple routes. That would be roughly about 180,000. When you couple with that with kind of the over budgeting that was done for FY26, we did not have the bidding at the time. We're projecting a reduction of about almost 11%, 10.85% for 214,720 in the regular transportation line. The 65,000, as I think Michael referred to, would represent a cargo van, for the maintenance people for the facilities department.
Check.
Yes.
On the van, Michelle, I remember when we were ordering new vehicles for the spend area, it was taking forever. What's the wait time on, say, this?
Tonight's answer was, I think you can get that.
Oh, good.
Yeah, but it doesn't have to have the
It doesn't have
specs.
to have a set of sheet.
Transportation.
So,
Alright, I just didn't want you waiting, fighting against the wheels.
So I don't see that happening much times. It's gonna be more of a contractor van where it's metal walls rather than windows, which are probably much harder to find.
So as I said, if you look at these two cost centers, central administration and then transportation, it's essentially level funded. However, I do have to point out in the salaries line for admin assistants for the business office, there is an addition of 1.0 FTE admin assistant. And we're doing that really to have one person help out, realize we've centralized procurement at central office, also with some grant management. We're looking to take an existing staff member and kind of plug her in and start the training process for payroll. And we think this is important, but we've also, over the last 2 to 3 years, have had serious meetings with some of the town officials. We have one person who does the payroll for 400 people,
and she's close to retirement,
very close to retirement.
and there's nobody that's questioning.
So the concern from the town is, what if something, God forbid, happened to this individual? Who do you have in a successor role, or who can duplicate those skills and those processes for payroll? So we do think it's wise to have this position in place so we can start planning for the very near future. I don't know if you have anything more to say about that.
It's, the person that we're gonna promote, she's now an MCPPO, so we'll have a procurement specialist who run business ops. She will also take all grants management. So, and those are areas that the prior assistant business official did personal, and that's left in a pocket where no one's making it either. So, and that was also the person who's cross-trained in payroll and payables. So now this new person who cross-trained in all their comp desk business office and Bill Jennings, Ken Resties, and Silicon. They want those to sleep.
Is that coming from an existing PD or is that a new PD? This is the
I think it would be kind of an amalgamation of some existing research.
Zoom arrangement for parent specialists in the district for everybody who's just coming up price 50,000 try to do what they can do. That's another area of the town is how to follow it. That's we need to get it hashed down and have some one person who's in charge of things.
It's been a while, but I'm channeling my inner Terry Ames here for the school committee hour. Don't we have to approve BBDs at the speaker level? Somehow because you've done that in the past. New positions.
Sure.
So,
You could bring something forward.
I just,
Yeah.
it's been a while, so I'm gonna, just to make sure we're, I have to go pick it up here, it says that. If she's watching at home, I'm sure she's been taking it. If we could.
Sure.
For transparency. Anything else?
That's it. Those are, I think that concludes all 9 cost centers that make up the budget.
Any specific questions for Central Admin Transportation District Fire Expenses? No. I'll just comment that $5,000 expense to do a transportation study was well spent. Any general comments of the thing people want to talk about budget-wise? Just no.
Just an addendum to the transportation comment, that handout that I picked up at MASC conference on transportation, that'd be great. Everyone probably expanding on some things in there. So if you hold on to that, it's something you pass along to the folks who come after us in terms of transportation. The two together are very validated.
Yeah, I mean, I think like most things in life, it's a balancing act. Realize from FY 25 to 26, we did decrease 1 bus. I think you've got to look at the reality of ridership. I think this is the starting point of looking at different possibilities to find efficiencies. And I don't say that in the context that, we need to cut more and more and more, and this has to be an annual exercise. But I think there's multiple paths to get to a destination that is efficiency.
I think I agree, but that's something that's looked at year and year and year. It's an iterative process, and demographics, location, routes change, and then you can't run more efficiencies. What one of the takeaway from it, I think it's similar about. That was, you've heard me say this before, like, what's the standard? What's the, you hear a number, well, is there a benchmark for ridership? The DESI benchmark for cost effectiveness is for under 6.5% of our budget on transportation. We're doing well. We were below just under 5, and that was before the elimination of 2 buses. So, our ridership, even though we're the overall as a system, we are below the average, but below the average is good. Anything else? I'm not ready to make a specific recommendation. The only thing that I'd like us to look at or consider, the original guidance from the tri-board is 3.5%. I'm not saying we have to go keep it under 3.5%. I'm not saying we have to go that far, but I think this is a very reasonable financially responsible budget. I just wonder if there's any opportunity to maybe look at a plus up if we can get some more for what you. I did some quick back of that. There were 2.76% local contribution. We picked that as 3, about 85 grand. It's going to be 10 or 3 picked up. The rooms aren't getting cheaper. Carpet's just getting older. I don't know if that's something we can maybe do a little sharp against. It would just be one line item and change. Between now and healthcare, maybe there's some options.
I think that what we've heard from finance the last few times we've talked with them is it's going to be done then. So if there's a way we could expedite that project, and at least we'll at this point in time, they're done.
Sure. And I look at it from that standpoint, and I also look at the right team for our kids, the right teachers.
Absolutely.
And I know two students were here, so if we could look at that one line item, and maybe just a couple different options. When we do this in 2 years, we have some options. That there are. Sure. Any other thoughts on that? Cool. So, I am going to, at some point, visit Mr. D or Dr. Dumpy, see some of those old carpets too. For you remind myself, I want to do this.
I mean, you could always just go lay carpet. If you volunteer, you still lay some carpet.
I'm going to fix my knee first. So, any other questions, comments? All right. Other topics not reasonably anticipated by the chair. I have none. Subcommittee reports, policy.
Policy subcommittee met tonight. We are still working our way through the I folder. We expect to finish that at our next meeting on February 11th. Should be ready for our first reading on the 25th.
That's quick and easy. All right. Liaison advisory committee reports.
There was a PTA meeting last night, and they just have some updates. Hold on. I got some technical difficulties.
Yeah, let's just check it out. You can pass the work.
Oh, thank you.
So they have set dates for the book fair. They have, and they will be sending out information as it gets closer, but they are Forestdale going to be February 3rd through 4th, and then Oak Ridge will be March 17th through the 18th. They are going to need volunteers for that, so if anyone is available to volunteer for book fair, the PTA would much appreciate it. Also, Valentine's Day is coming up, and right now, for those of us who have smaller children, we love to hand out those little Valentines every year. If you order Valentines through minted.com for your kids, and you use the code fundraise sandwich, you will get 20% off your order, and money goes back into our PTA for that. That's all I have.
Thank you. Anyone else? None. Warrants.
Make a motion to approve this evening's warrants. Second.
Motion by Ms. Goodman, second by Dr. Miller. Any discussion? I did confirm we had 4 signatures under the majority of the committee. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Passes 5-0. Next up is our second public forum of the evening. Would anybody like to come forward for public forum? Seeing none. Future agenda items. Do we have anything in the future? I did mention the student account. If we could just touch base on that, because future superintendent. Acknowledgements, closing remarks. I got 2. The uninjured reserve this season. This is actually officials appreciation, sports officials appreciation week. Every day you see the email from Mr. Diamond. There's at the high school level, there's multiple athletic events. It wouldn't happen with the officials. So if you go to a game this week, don't yell on, just make it. I was actually coaching a middle school basketball game today because I helped out my dad. So I knew to apologize for that. The 2 officials have both been doing it for more than 40 years. And I can tell you during a normal season that it means they're in different agendas about every weeknight. Starting volunteers at home. And they're not doing this with sign of org. You might see that you get a fee, but they do it for the love of the game and they do it for the kids. So hug a ref. And lastly, a very happy 15th birthday to the mayor of Salish, Mr. J.T. Panetta.
Celebrate.
Yeah. With that, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Okay, we give a motion to adjourn and reconvene January 28th.
Correct. 12:36 at 6 p.m. here at St. Mitchell's Park.
Motion by Ms. Goodwin, second by Dr. Miller. Any discussion? I will just comment that in addition to the regular business meeting, we will have the public hearing on the budget before we look to vote to approve a budget.
one thing about the public hearing is different than public comment. Anybody that comes and asks a question, we can engage with them, which is kind of nice. So we'll see you on the 28th. All in favor? All right, any opposed? Any abstentions? We are adjourned. Thank you very much. See you on the 28th.